The rain outside didn't roar, it just pattered softly and steadily, a gentle rhythm that filled the silence of the room. Normally, Daniel liked the sound of rain. It reminded him of childhood, of safety, of being wrapped in blankets beside the window. But tonight, it only echoed the loneliness that sat like a stone in his chest. He sat on the edge of his bed, his elbows on his knees, hands covering his face. The lamp beside him flickered, casting shadows across the walls, shadows that seemed to move like memories he'd rather forget. Life had not gone the way he expected. He didn't know when it started to break, or where exactly the cracks first appeared. Maybe it was a slow unraveling. Maybe it had always been happening, and he had been too busy holding everything together to see it. But now, the threads were gone. Everything felt like it was falling apart. His job had slipped through his fingers first. Then friendships grew distant. Even his family, whom he loved, seemed farther away than ever, not physically, but emotionally, as though words traveled slower between them than before. And the worst part, the part he couldn't say out loud, was how distant he felt from God. He remembered when faith came easy. When prayers felt like conversations, not empty words spoken into a void. When he could feel hope like a warm fire in his chest. But now it felt like he was talking to himself, like heaven was a closed door and his voice was too weak to reach it. God, are you even listening? He whispered into the quiet. His voice didn't echo. The room swallowed it whole. The question had lived in him for months. It had sat in his heart through sleepless nights and quiet mornings. Through moments where he forced a smile in front of others, only to lose it the second he was alone. Through nights where he tried to pray and ended up just staring at the ceiling. Through mornings where he opened his Bible and felt nothing. He kept believing because he didn't know how to stop. But believing didn't feel like faith anymore, it felt like survival. He sighed and lowered his hands, looking around the room. It was ordinary, too ordinary. A bed, a small desk, a bookshelf with worn corners, a closet slightly open, the lamp giving off a warm, dim glow. A place that once felt safe, now felt unbearably empty. But then, something shifted. Not the kind of shift that makes you jump. Not a sudden sound or dramatic sensation. No lightning, no thunder, no angel appearing in radiant light. Just a change, a quiet one, subtle, but unmistakable. The air felt different, as though the room had been holding its breath, and exhaled. Daniel frowned slightly, lifting his head. He didn't see anything different, but suddenly the space no longer felt empty. It felt inhabited, like someone had entered the room without footsteps, without opening the door, just was. It wasn't frightening, it wasn't overwhelming, it was familiar in a way that tugged deep in his chest. His breath caught. He didn't move, he didn't need to. The presence wasn't external, it was something he recognized, something his soul leaned toward without being told. And then, without sound, without voice, without vibration in the air, he heard it. Not with his ears, but somewhere deeper. I am here. The words were soft, gentle, like sunlight touching a closed flower. Daniel's eyes filled immediately. His chest tightened. Not in pain, but in release. Tears rose from a place he didn't even know still held them. He didn't speak. He couldn't. His heart was beating hard enough to be heard in his ears. His hands trembled. His breath broke on its way out. He hadn't felt this in so long. This presence, this peace, this love. It wasn't distant. It wasn't something he had to reach for, beg for, chase, or prove himself worthy of. It was simply there, right here. I have never left. The voice, no, the presence, continued. Not scolding, not disappointed, not demanding, just truth, gentle truth, the kind that doesn't crush, but lifts. Daniel pressed a hand to his chest, as if trying to hold himself together. How? He whispered, his voice shaky, breaking. How are you here? I thought I lost you. He didn't expect an answer. But the presence responded instantly, as though it had been waiting for him to ask. You cannot lose me. The words felt like they wrapped around him. Like arms, like warmth, like safety. Even when you feel far, I am close. Even when you are quiet, I am listening. Even when you are tired, I am carrying you. Daniel closed his eyes, the tears spilling now. Every wall he had built to hold himself together, every forced smile, every swallowed fear, every moment he told himself to just keep going, cracked and dissolved under the weight of that gentleness. "I didn't know," he whispered. It came out like a confession, like a wound being exposed to light for the first time. "You were never abandoned." The presence felt closer now, like the space around him was full of love itself. The kind of love that didn't ask for proof or performance. The kind of love that knew him, fully, and stayed. The room didn't change, but he did. For the first time in months, he didn't feel alone. Not because someone called him. Not because someone hugged him. Not because someone fixed the problems in his life. But because he realized, finally, deeply, God had been there all along. In the same room, listening, waiting, loving. Daniel breathed, and the breath didn't hurt this time. He was not alone, and he never had been. The room was quiet again, but it no longer felt empty. Daniel lay back slowly, his heart still trembling from the weight of the presence he felt. Real, near, unmistakably familiar. For so long, he had believed he was alone in his pain, that his prayers had gone unheard, that silence meant absence. But now he understood. Silence had not meant abandonment. Silence had been God sitting beside him, waiting for the moment Daniel would be still enough to hear him. He wiped his face with the back of his sleeve, though the tears continued falling freely. They were not tears of despair this time, but release, like a river finally breaking past a dam. "Why now?" he whispered. It was not a challenge. It was a question from a soul that wanted to understand. The answer came like a breath across his heart. "Because tonight, you stopped fighting alone." Daniel closed his eyes. He could feel the truth in those words. For so long he had tried to fix everything on his own. He had tried to be strong, to pretend he was fine, to rebuild what had fallen apart without asking for help, from anyone, even God. He didn't want to be a burden. He didn't want to be weak. He didn't want to fail. But in trying to be strong, he had only exhausted himself into emptiness. "I didn't know how to ask," he admitted softly. "Asking is not always done with words," came the reply. "Sometimes your tears ask for you. Your silence speaks. Your breaking heart calls out in a language I have always understood." Daniel's breath shuddered, and he let himself sink deeper into the mattress. The rain continued outside, but now its rhythm felt gentle again, like the earth breathing. He remembered nights when he had cried quietly into his pillow. Nights when he stared into darkness and begged for relief without forming a single sentence. Nights when exhaustion didn't let him pray, even though his heart was praying louder than ever. All those nights, he had assumed heaven was silent. But heaven had been listening. Every ache, every fear, every unspoken plea, God had been there, not distant, not watching, but present. Daniel swallowed. "I thought I had to be better first," he confessed. "I thought you only wanted me when I was strong." The presence moved. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, like compassion itself drawing closer around him. "If I only wanted you when you were strong, I would not be God. Strength does not bring you to me. Need does." The words hit something deep in him, something that had been hidden under layers of pride and shame and exhaustion. He had always believed he had to earn love, earn support, earn care, earn peace. Even with God, he thought he needed to pray more, do better, speak the right words, prove his worthiness. But now he understood. Love didn't come because he earned it. Love came because it was freely given. Grace was not a reward. Grace was a presence, and that presence was here. Daniel exhaled slowly, the tightness in his chest loosening, the invisible weight finally lifting. For the first time in so long, he felt safe. Not because the world was fixed. Not because his life suddenly made sense. But because he was no longer facing it alone. He lay there quietly, feeling the warmth of that presence like a soft blanket over his fear. Eventually, he spoke again. "What do I do now?" The answer came just as gently as before. "Open." Daniel frowned slightly. "Open what?" "Your heart." He had expected instructions, steps to follow, tasks to complete, things to fix. But this was simple. And yet, it felt harder than anything he had ever done. "I don't know how," he whispered again, voice cracking under the vulnerability. "You open it by telling me the truth." A silence followed. Soft, patient, allowing his soul space to breathe. Not polished truth, not pretty truth, not rehearsed truth, real truth. The truth he never said aloud, not even to himself. Daniel's throat tightened. His eyes burned again. The words rose slowly, painfully, but honestly. I'm tired, he whispered. I know. I feel like I failed. You have not failed. You are learning. I feel lost. You are on a path you cannot yet see. I feel unworthy. There was no hesitation in the answer, not even a breath between. You were worthy the moment I created you. Daniel covered his mouth with his hand to stifle the sob that escaped. His body shook, but the shaking no longer came from fear. It came from the deep relief of finally being seen, completely, without being rejected. He let the tears fall. He let his heart open. He didn't try to hold himself together. He didn't try to be strong. He didn't try to be perfect. He simply was, and that was enough. Minutes passed, or maybe an hour. Time didn't matter. Peace had settled into him like warmth spreading slowly through frozen limbs. He hadn't felt peace like this in years. Eventually, he whispered, "Will you stay?" The answer was immediate, steady, and eternal. I never left. Daniel closed his eyes and breathed deeply. The rain continued to fall. The lamp still glowed softly. The room was still the same. But his heart was not. He didn't know what tomorrow would look like. He didn't know how everything in his life would unfold. He didn't know how long the journey ahead would be or what challenges it would hold. But he knew this: he would not walk alone anymore. And for the first time in a very long time. That was enough.